we've seen the rise of Andrew Tate. Why do you think he's become such a huge figure to young men and boys in particular, and what impact is that having amongst women of your generation?
I think for boys, they're hearing the same messages over and over again, which is obviously the kind of demonizing masculinity, saying you need to become more sensitive, you need to be almost more like women in the way that you think about things and approach things. And I think, you know, men tend to just process their emotions differently and think about things differently. You know, it doesn't make them wrong. But I think now we're almost telling men that all of the ways they do it are toxic or too blunt, or so they're trying to kind of become more feminine. And so I think someone like Andrew Tate comes along and he has a masculine approach to it, quite heavy-handed and a bit blunt. But I think for men that's appealing because it's the same with girls. You know, they're being lied to quite often and kind of convinced that there's something wrong with them. And then you have someone come along and say, oh, well, if you have these masculine traits, then it's a good thing. You can be strong, you can do this, whatever. So I can see why that's appealing. And I think, yeah.
Yeah, no, well, it makes sense. And I said it at the time, what I find very puzzling, although it's not puzzling, I think the answer is quite obvious, is like whenever anyone comes along who taps into that frustration that young men feel about, like, this is how I am, but I'm being told that the way that I am is wrong, right? Whether it's a Jordan Peterson or an Andrew Tate, who I have my reservations about, no one ever goes, why is that? No one ever goes, like, why are men doing this?
Yeah, what are they lacking?
Exactly.
They're filling a vacuum. Yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, it's just, we hear the same messages over and over again. And when someone has something different to say, it's really appealing. And there's probably stuff within what he's saying that is useful that boys should be listening to, but we kind of need to listen as well and figure out what that is.
I think Andrew Tate is a very good example of what happens when there are not enough healthy role models.
Yeah.
So someone who is as out there as he is will come along and hoover up their attention because no one else is speaking to that audience.
And they give people guidelines to follow. Like he'll say, this is what you need to do to be a man. And then they've kind of got markers to check off. Whereas, you know, we're living in these consumer cultures without, you know, the decline of religion and things like that. We don't have those set guidelines of how to come of age, what gives us purpose, what we should be following. So when someone comes along and says, oh, this is how you live a happier life, things like that, then people are going to listen.
And as well, when you think about the fact that the divorce rate is what it is, a lot of boys are growing up. There's no male figure in their household. Yeah. They go to school. Most of their teachers are women. Yeah. They're surrounded by women. Education has become more and more feminized. So traditional male behavioral types like boisterousness, you know, wanting to be physically active, actively looked down upon. Then someone comes in to give what, in their eyes, is a positive vision of masculinity. Why wouldn't they follow it?
Yeah, and I wrote a piece about how the kind of social justice activism, the culture today is very feminine in nature. So things like cancel culture, you know, women are more likely to use indirect methods of aggression like reputation destruction, social exclusion. You know, we're more likely to be risk averse, so safetyism is kind of parallels, you know, typical female behaviour. And I think a lot of this stuff that's happening in culture is feminine in nature. And some boys and men don't feel like they fit into that. That's not how they would have society be. And, you know, it's not because they're wrong. And I think, so someone masculine comes along, it's very attractive to them because it probably aligns more with their traits than the culture now.
And the other thing that I find worrying is, so he's in prison, nobody knows if he's guilty or innocent. But people think, right, okay, that's it. The problem is dealt with. We've got rid of him. And I'm there thinking, well, no, the problem isn't dealt with because then somebody else is going to come along and tap into it.
Yeah, maybe worse, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true. I think, like you said, there's a vacuum there. There's someone, they're filling a demand for something. So we need to figure out what that demand is for and try and figure out what it is within that kind of ultra-masculine front that someone like Andrew Tate has. What is it that they find attractive about that? Like, because there is value in it. Surely there is, if so many people are interested in it.
Well, there's definitely value in it in the sense that, if you're telling people to take men particularly, to take responsibility, to pursue their dreams, these are things that a lot of men of your generation have never heard in their lives. They've never been encouraged. But then, as I said, I think someone who says this, you should only see your children once a year or whatever, that's probably going in the wrong direction there. So that's why I say healthy role models. And, I think that's why Jordan Peterson actually became as big as he became, because he was like, take responsibility. Here's some rules, And I think that it's important for people like that to be coming through and giving positive visions of masculinity, and for society to stop demonizing masculinity
and I think
as well.
that's what men respond to. They respond to the kind of pick yourself up and sort yourself out. Girls don't really respond to that in the same way. We need a different approach. And I think boys don't really have that in society. It's all about like, you're doing fine, you're, relax, de-stress, take on less challenges. Whereas a lot of boys' mental health problems might come from the fact that they're not being pushed. Maybe they want to be pushed, they want to take on more challenges. So I think when someone comes along using that male approach, it's really appealing to them.